I am Mike Boston. This is Guarding the Truth. This is a conversation that I've been waiting to have about biblical womanhood, and I'm so grateful for our guest, who I'll introduce here shortly. We're having this conversation as a result of a recent conversation that I had with three men in our church, and we discovered, ladies, that there's some questions that we shouldn't entertain, and there were some things that we probably shouldn't give an answer to. So in the midst of that conversation with those three gentlemen, I knew immediately we are going to have a biblical womanhood. And so I thank God for leading me to those of you who are with me today. And today I want to introduce our guests. First, I'll start with the one sitting to my right, who's always right there by my side, my wife, Jennifer Boston. Thank you for coming today. She's going to represent one of the three types of ladies that we have. I'll explain that shortly. Then I'll call both of them, look at them like daughters to me, but I have Nisha Hawkins, who AKA better known as Esquire Hawkins. Thank you. I got a lawyer in the house. And then we have Monique, better known as Neek Charles. She's in the house with us this afternoon. I'm so grateful for you guys being here, and let's just jump right into it. I want to tell you why I selected the three of you. Well, Jenny is a no-brainer why I selected her, okay? But I want to look at show you the types of women that I think each of you represent. As a matter of fact, I want to start with daughter Nisha Hawkins. Today I'm looking at you, and one of the reasons why I chose you for this biblical womanhood conversation is you, for me, represents Lydia in the Bible. Lydia in the Bible, if I can show you these verses, Acts chapter, 16, verses 14 through 15. There we go. It says, and a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple fabrics and a worshiper of God, was listening, and the Lord opened her heart to respond to the things spoken by Paul. And when she and her household had been baptized, she urged us, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come into my house and stay. And she prevailed upon us. Now, I chose you for that because, first of all, Lydia is a businesswoman. She's kind of like in the corporate world. You being a prosecutor, right? Prosecutor, in the corporate world, in the business world. But even with that, she loved the Lord, and she understood her role, even though she was in the corporate society. Okay, we'll just kind of leave it at that today. And then the next one that I looked with would be Miss Monique Charles. I chose you to be this woman that many people are familiar with. It's the Proverbs 31 woman. Now, I'm not going to read all of those verses, but you'll kind of get the idea why I chose you for that. It says, an excellent woman, a wife, who can find her? Her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and she will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. Okay, here you come. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. Now, you know why I did that, right?
Right.
All of us know that Monique has a business that she works from her home. We call it, what is it?
Nick Knits.
Neek Knits.
Right.
And you work with your hand, fabrics, and you make all type of blankets, comforters, and things like that. I'm trying to promote her a little bit right now, okay? And so when I got to thinking about that, and then the way that this Proverbs 31 woman supports her husband, it was a no-brainer that I would bring you in. So we have the kind of stay-at-home wife, mother, the lover of a husband, supporter of her husband. We've got the business corporate woman who still handles her business and submits herself to God. And then we have this one who's sitting next to me. Now, I wonder if she knows who I would chose for her. I chose probably one that most wouldn't think of, but I actually chose Titus 2 for you, Jennifer. Yeah, let me tell you why. Forget the first word in verse 3, older. Okay, that's not why I chose it, but it says, older women likewise ought to be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossip, nor enslaved to much wine, which I know you don't drink, teaching what is good, which I know you're always doing that, so that they may encourage young women, which you're always doing that, to love their husbands, which you do a great job at that. to love their children, to be sensible, pure workers of home at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands so that the word of God will not be dishonored. And everybody who knows Jenny, Jennifer, depends on what you're feeling like on that particular day and time, knows that. And I say that not in a demeaning way, that Jenny really supports me. She loves her husband. She'll let you know that too. And all of those qualities that I saw in the Titus 2 woman. So today, I'm working with the Titus 2 woman. I'm working with the corporate woman in the business world. And I'm working with the woman who stays at home, who's a worker with her hands at home and supporting her husband. And that's what I saw in the three of you today. We have many others in our church who could have sat here. I want you to think that I'm speaking negative against them. But that's why I called you here today. And so I just want to begin our conversation here as quickly as we can, but just to let you know, I'm grateful for that. My production guy's here. He's ready to work these cameras for us. And again, just anybody want to say hi or something before we get started? How about you?
I would like to say good evening to you, everyone, actually.
All right. Niche?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us here today. Hey.
Hey, I know, that's what I'm talking about right there. All right, y'all, I want to just get right into it again. These questions were kind of born out of, this is like the inside of the sock question. I was working with the men, and then I saw questions in biblical manhood that if you pull that sock inside out, you kind of get another. So I came up with a couple questions that I want you guys to just have a conversation about. I'm the only one with notes because y'all all smarter than me. All right. I had to write down my questions so I could kind of stay on track. And I didn't want our audience to think that this was, you guys had any kind of pre-knowledge or pre-studying of the questions, but that you were speaking from your heart as it relates to these particular talking points. So, question number one. Do you feel, because as a wife who tries to represent biblical womanhood, that you are a second-class citizen? I'll say that again. Remember, this is a conversation about biblical womanhood. How you respect your headship of your home, how you submit to God, and how you put family first. Even though you work in the world, you work at home, and you join me in ministry. How you do these things. Do you believe that in representing a biblical womanhood that you are a second-class citizen? Do you guys understand the question I'm trying to ask? Okay, Neek, what do you say there?
I don't believe that I'm a second-class citizen. If anything, I feel like I have more responsibility in that role, in that position, because I feel like there's so many other women out there that yearn to be biblical women and be like an example. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like, with just like us particularly, sorry, mm-hmm. There's so many other, young females out there that can look up to us or that do look up to us. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to come to, do you feel like you're a second-class citizen because you try and represent biblical womanhood?
No. Biblically, no. But if I could add to, if it was just talking about the regular world when women feel second-class citizen, if you don't mind. Okay. Sometimes women feel second class when they have the same experience as the other guy. Mm-hmm. Or they have even more experience, but yet be underpaid. But biblically, no, I don't feel it second-class citizen.
Okay, that's going to lead to a question I'm going to ask later. But how about you?
That was a good point. I do agree with that in that aspect. In regards to biblically, no. Kind of like both ladies say, when it comes to being a biblical woman, people might initially, the world might say that you're second class, but if you look at the woman in the Bible, just even some that you mentioned, even when God made Eve for Adam, he called her his helpmate. Right. He didn't say she was second class. He didn't say that she was less than. She was there to help her husband and support, and that's the first example that we have of what a woman's role is in the Bible. And I think that speaks to it. We're not second class.
Right, right. Because a lot of people try to present that or project the fact that, if you're subservient to your husband, and we're going to talk about that a little later as it relates to value and worth, things of that nature. But, okay, good question. Number 2, is it difficult for you to see what the Bible teaches about being equal in essence, value, and worth, but still under the authority of your husband's headship? Let me say it this way. I teach here at the church. You guys know I teach it at the church. The Bible does not say that the woman is worth less than the man. It does in value or even in essence. They are equal. But as it relates to her, she is still under the authority of his headship. And so I guess the question I'm asking from a biblical woman's perspective, do you see it difficult that the Bible, do you see any confusion in the fact that you're equal in essence, you're equal in value, you're equal also in worth, but you function under the authority or the headship of your husband? Who want to tackle that one first?
I would like to say
Okay.
that I agree with the Bible, and I agree with when God gave Adam his responsibilities and when he gave Eve hers. And because of that, I believe that we should fall under the leadership of our husbands.
Okay.
So I don't disagree.
Okay. Question, statement, comment?
I don't think it's confusing, but I can see how if you're not a biblical or you don't understand what God has ordained, it can be confusing, especially if you're in the world and you're trying to understand, or you're just being new to being saved, how are we created equal, but then I'm beneath my husband. And I think that, whatever church you go to, understanding, from a pastor, from women's ministry, understanding how God has, made the order, the man submits to the God leadership and then the wife submits to the husband, but you're still equal overall. But it can be confusing to someone who's not a believer, even a new believer or immature believer.
Yeah, I like that.
I would have to say, just from personal experience, whenever, like the beginning of our marriage, I didn't fully understand that concept.
Okay.
I was a believer, but I didn't, I guess, understand the Bible, completely.
Okay.
So, Darius being the head and him leading me, it wasn't an issue because I think naturally I'm a submitter, but just him making an overall decision was like, no, I think I can make a decision for myself as well.
Yeah.
But I guess now understanding that God made, that's how He functioned us or made us to function. That's what made me want to accept it, is that I'm doing this for God first, and then being submissive to my husband and everything.
Yeah, it's almost like I call it the nut in the boat. They call the boat the male, and then the nut, the female. Well, which one you gonna do without? You screw the nut on the boat. They have the same sense of value. It's no good. The boat is no good without the nut. The nut is no good without the boat. And I tell the guys all the time, I certainly wouldn't want to sit on a piece of furniture where somebody didn't want to, put the nut on the boat because it looked as it was submitting, to it. I know that sounds facetious, but that's really how it is. I want to also say something. I probably should have let you guys state it earlier in regards to years of marriage. So let's go with you, because you just said that, when we first got married. So how many years have you been married?
We've been married for 8 years now and been together 15.
Right. Okay. Yes.
We'll be 4 in July.
4 whole months in July.
4 years.
Oh, okay.
4 years.
4 years in July. And you?
I am proud to say married for 35, but yet we dated 2 years.
Okay.
So 37
All right,
altogether.
then. That's right. Now, Listen, and I probably should have said this earlier, because especially if there's someone who's not a believer or someone just curious, or like you said earlier, new in their faith. And I'm going to kind of be talking about this in a series that I'm going to be teaching in our church soon. But I just thought this would be a good place for me to kind of introduce it. Because when we talk about truth, because everything that we're talking about today is straight out of Scripture. We come out of the Bible. The people, the women we spoke of, their positions from the Bible. But I want to read this as it relates to truth. What is truth? Truth, it is the self-revelation of God's own being, the self-disclosure of the nature, mind, and will of God. The author of all truth is God. He is the sole determiner of truth, the supreme governor of truth, and the highest arbitrator of truth. As the ultimate standard of truth, God himself measures all things. Now, that's very important. Two more lines. All that is in agreement with God says, and does is truth. In other words, everything God does and says is truth. Truth originates with God. Please understand this. Truth doesn't come from humans. I wanted to say with man, but since I'm dealing with a group of ladies today, truth doesn't come from mankind of humans. Please understand that, because a lot of people like to go, well, that's your truth. And when we're talking about biblical womanhood, well, that's your truth, or this is my truth. Please understand that all truth originates with God. God is the truth. We know that. It is not derived from the world. And the reason why a lot of, women and men have complications with submitting to biblical manhood, biblical womanhood, is because of where they're deriving their truth from. All truth comes from God. It's not derived in the world. It's not a collection of thoughts based on society or the culture. Truth is not determined by a majority of opinion. So I want our audience to know this today, that when we talk about biblical womanhood, you got to understand, none of these ladies here today have derived their truth based on a majority of opinion. With that being said, I want to read this last line. God is the final judge of all truth. And here it is. Therefore, sin is whatever God says it is. And I want our audience to understand that. Sin, because God is truth, is whatever God says it is. So if God says it's a sin to function out of order, it doesn't matter if the majority of opinion says, it doesn't matter who says, it doesn't matter what the culture says, the society says, it doesn't matter what we feel. God is the originator of truth, and sin is whatever he calls it. Right. And if we can just hold on to that, then, we can begin to share those kind of thoughts with people. Because when people say your truth is your truth, no, truth only originates with God. So the only truth that we can settle on has to come from God.
Right. I agree.
And if we can hold on to that, then our defense that we're having here today in regards to biblical womanhood and the functionality of men and women, then you understand, well, if the Bible says it, which God is true, everything in it, then it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Okay? Question number 3. It actually is born out of 2 Timothy chapter 3. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 12 through 15. Now, I am not going to read verse 12, because that's the one that talks about women preachers. And I know today you guys don't want to talk about that. Okay, we're not going to talk about it. We'll say that for a whole nother conversation. I'm not going to ask you to speak about women preachers, if that's biblical or not. But I do want to talk about how helping women understand verse 15. So verse 15 in there says this. After it talks about a woman being silent and all that, says, he says, 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12. I've been having, there he is. 1 Timothy 3, 12 through 15. So it must be 2 Timothy. No wonder why it's not working. Yeah, there it is right there. So 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15. It says, it speaks here about a woman's authority. Let's see. And from that, there it is. And from that childhood, you have known the sacred writings, which are able to give wisdom that leads to salvation through faith, which is in Christ. No, I'm sorry. It has to be First Timothy. What am I doing here today? Help me out, media. First Timothy, chapter 3, and you know what? I think it's chapter 2. That's what it is. First Timothy, chapter 2. First Timothy, chapter 2. There it is. First Timothy chapter 2. We're not going to talk about verse 12 where it says, but I do not allow a woman to teach or exercise authority of a man, but to remain quiet. I want to look at verse 15 because this is the verse people miss. It says, but women will be preserved through the bearing of children if they continue in faith and love and sanctity with self-restraint. Listen, what that verse actually means is that basically a mother or a woman's influence in the home is actually, in a sense, greater than the father of the man's authority. Think about what I just said, and then I'll let you guys join me. A biblical woman who is submitting to the headship of her husband, who loves God, her influence in the home is greater than the man's authority. Let me expand it a little bit, then y'all can come in. Okay, the man get up, he go to work, he make the paycheck, he do all that other type of stuff. But the mother, she's rearing the child. She is doing homework with it. She's doing this and that. She's showing them love. She's spending time. She's nurturing the child, the things that, a lot of fathers don't do. She's sharing the word of God with the child and all that stuff. So now the child understands, racism. They understands injustice and all that stuff. So do you understand what I'm saying? A woman's influence in the home, in many senses, is greater than the man's authority. He's the authority, but the mother, the wife, she's been designed to create a sense of family and godliness in the family, even though the man has a responsibility to introduce his kids. But when the woman is functioning in her role, which family comes first, before anything else. When I turn to all this, thinking about even work and places like that, family comes before that. Family comes before the courthouse. Yes, okay? But do you understand, and this is what I want y'all to speak to, how then, and if women could grasp this, their influence of being the woman in the home, a biblical woman, actually is greater than a man's authority. Who want to speak to that first?
I'll allow y'all to go first.
I'll go.
Okay.
So I'm not a mother.
Okay.
But I have one. And okay, my dad, he worked Monday through Friday. He would come back home Friday evening.
Okay.
So from that Monday morning to that Friday afternoon, my mom, she was the one to take care of us, to cook and clean for us, get us ready for school, discipline us when needed, just basically raise us up, right? And so I may have missed the rest of the question, but I agree with what you were saying with how the woman, her influence, or the mother, the influence is greater than the man. Because when my dad would come home, he showed us love, and you felt that there was love, but just the overall experience with my parents, there was definitely a stronger connection with my mom than there was with my dad, just because he would have such a short time with us.
Well, that's by design. Could we hear your thoughts?
I was going to say the same thing. So growing up, my mom was the one who we were getting up in the morning doing prayer together. She was the one who was getting us ready for church. Even if you think about like your grandparents, your grandmother is usually the person who's getting you ready, who's teaching you. So I completely agree. The concepts and things I know about the Bible are things that my mother instilled in me at such a young age. It's the things that my grandmother instilled in me. Not that our fathers didn't. They just didn't have the time as much, like you stated. They're working 8 to 5, they're working maybe later hours depending what they do, and the mothers are the ones that are there in the house. Even when you go through things, it's usually the mom just being nurturers, just being our natural being, we're going to nurture and be there for our children more. And then you teach them those biblical concepts that when they grow up and they leave the house that they can come back to. So I completely agree with that.
What's your
And
thoughts
if I
on
can
that?
add to that, sometimes they say women are the thermostat of the house, like you said, because we are gonna be nurturing the children as well, and not only that, but we kind of make sure that we function within our emotions, and we're, like you said, grandma teaching things of that nature, and
Yeah, the woman just, God designed it like that. You guys are the nurturers. Yeah, that's from God. When God looked at Adam, he said, okay, you're missing nurturing, you're missing this, you're missing that. Don't worry about it. I'm going to make you a helpmate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's going to finish all the things that I didn't, that you don't innately have inside of you. And so when I speak of that, then you can understand that, a mother's love is like one of the first things that a child gets and experience, the feeding of it. The dad may, get up at 3:00 in the morning, but I mean, trust me, the baby looking for mommy, okay? The baby looking for mommy, and so when that moves into that child growing and, the ABCs and the Bible scriptures, I'm just thinking about the things that Jenny did with our children and our grandchildren. I know she had a great influence. I believe to this day my son loved me to death. I really do. I really do. But when he kind of wants something, mom, he'll go to her first. And I'm okay with that. But I believe that's by design, by God. And so when you think of it like that, and, even though many don't like to think of that the woman is submitting to the authority or the headship of the man, her influence could be much greater than his authority. You know what I'm saying? So, it's because I say so, but the children understands why it is because of the mother, love and affection and the nurturing and all of the many things that she bring to the
and if
child.
I can add to it, I love when fathers would say, "Well, what did your mother say?" Even though they may change it, but they'll first say, "Well, what did your mother say?"
Yeah,
I
I
can
was good at that.
appreciate men doing that.
I was good at that.
I remember that. I would ask my dad something, and he'd be like, "What'd your mom say?" And she told me to ask you. That's what.
Had a few of those.
Now, there was occasions when I didn't agree with what she said, but the children never knew it. I get back in the room, why did you say that? Now, you made me go along with that. You know I ain't what I wanted you to.
Right.
But you got to see the influence of the. And I say all that to say again this, I don't want a woman to think because she submits to the authority of her husband that she does not have an influence, an impact, or make a difference in the family. The Bible basically said God designed it for her to make the difference in the family because of her position as a wife and as a mother.
Thank you.
All right, so that leads to the next question. Then could it be right to say, based on what we just talked about, the woman's influence being greater than the man's authority, could it be right to say that a wife and mother have a very high calling from a biblical perspective? What's your thoughts on that? Understanding what we're saying, then could it be, I want to hear your thoughts on how high do you see her calling as a mother, as a wife, even if you're not a mother, from a biblical perspective, knowing now her contributions to the family, whether you have children or not?
I think she has a great responsibility
Okay.
as a mother.
Okay.
Also, you get the payback when you see your children become parents and they are parenting their children. So yes, we must not only consider it as a high calling, but a great responsibility.
Yeah, that goes back to that first thing. You're not a second-class citizen because you're nurturing. You're not a second-class citizen because you look to the welfare and the benefits of your children before you even care for yourself. I'm sorry, let me hear your thoughts on that.
My thought on that is I mean, the responsibility is great, because we are bringing up, the children to become, women and men, of tomorrow, as they say. So yeah, the responsibility definitely is a great responsibility.
Yeah, it's a high calling. Yes.
Yeah, and I know you say, how high is that calling? I don't think there's a limit to it, right? It's never ending. Me as a 30-year-old, I still go to my mom about things. I still call
You're
her.
a prosecutor. You're
Yeah,
a
I'm
lawyer,
a
attorney.
prosecutor. I'm a
What do you
lawyer.
mean? You don't go to your mommy for any answers.
Even when I'm going through hard times in my life and I'm questioning, I'm like, I don't understand this in regards to God or why. And she's the person who's leading me. Not that you don't love your father, but that's the person who, since you were a child, like you were saying, rearing the children, teaching the children throughout our whole life, I still call her and I go, so I don't think it's a limit on it. I think it's eternal. And while they're here on this earth, that's going to always be your calling as a mother.
Now, with that being said, listen to what you just said. I'm so grateful you brought that in because you're married 4 years. You, I know there are things you go to your husband for. I know that. But the fact that your mother, you're married, and you know the vows that God has put together, let no one put us under and all that, but you're still going to mother. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to mother 30 years and did all what you did, all the accomplishments that you've made. You walk in the courtroom, you demand respect, girl. You understand what I'm saying? People needs not. And then you call your mommy, to get, but that is her influence. That's the influence. See, the authority that a father may end when they leave the house. I don't know if y'all hearing what I'm saying. You live by my rules, do what I say under my roof. The authority that the father could have may leave when the children leave the house, but the influence of a biblical mother or woman, man, that does not leave even when the children leave the house.
That's so true.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it's because our mothers they taught us so much, and so I believe until the day that they're gone, there's still so much for our mothers to teach us, because they raised us to be from children to adults, but now we're adults, we still need that guidance. Like me, I still need to know how to be just a woman. I need to know how to be a wife. Just seeing that example of her being a wife, we still need to see that.
Great.
I agree.
You agree? That's good. Well, I'm outnumbered here. I don't want none of y'all to disagree because me and the cameraman, we even outnumbered. Boy. Okay, let's look at something else. What do you think it will take then for women in society to see the call and challenge to become a biblical woman greater than the call of a female whose lives reflect a worldly woman? Okay, let me say it in a way that, society kind of has shaped or is shaping the mindset of what a woman looks like, what a female should expect. And I'm not talking the egalitarian type stuff. I'm not talking about 50 cents on the dollar. I'm not talking about that particular stuff. But what do you think women in society who may not be saved, who maybe haven't accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and they see the challenge of becoming the type of women that you ladies are talking about, do you think, what is your thoughts rather on them thinking about being a female who reflects a worldly woman versus one who reflects a biblical woman? Do you understand what I'm saying? The question. Okay.
So our goal as Christians, or as a Christian woman, is to be more like Christ, and to to go to Christ.
Okay.
And that worldly woman is not going to bring us to Christ.
Okay.
So if our goal, or if the young woman goal is to be that biblical woman, she should want to go follow the biblical woman and Christian woman, not the woman who is dressing promiscuously and who is talking about this, that, and the third, or whatever that has nothing to do with Christ,
Right.
or the lordship of Christ or anything. So,
And if
yeah,
I can add,
yeah,
I think we women need to utilize where they're at. We're in a tech world. We need to reach out with them.
right.
Maybe do some things through social media. Let them see, since they're on the outside of the church, bring the inside of the church to them through social media.
Yeah, there are creative ways that you can do that. I definitely agree with that. Your thoughts?
Can you pose the question again?
Yes, no problem. That's what I love about this. That's what I love about this. Let me state it another way. Let's say there are women in society and they got to make a choice between a biblical woman or being a worldly woman. When they look at biblical womanhood versus worldly womanhood, what would make them want to, be a biblical woman as opposed to a worldly woman?
It really just comes down to what are their examples, kind of like Monique said. Who are the people in their life? Who are the influencers? Who are they following on social media? That comes into what you said. Who are, their role models? A lot of women or children don't have role models.
Right.
So coming out into the world, I know in my position before COVID, we used to have children from my middle school and high school come, and I would talk to them just about my role as a prosecutor, right? Okay. Well, we should do the same thing in the church. Mentoring, those type of things. That's the only way, because if they don't see it, if they don't have an example, then they're never going to choose the biblical womanhood. They're not going to understand what is a biblical. They hear these things, but they're never going to choose it if they don't see examples. Now in social media, everything is just pushing out, this is how you need to be as a woman. This is how you should dress. This is how you should feel. You should be independent and in control. And if we're not doing that, then they're never going to be able to come forward and be like, well, you know what, I want to be this, unless they see that example.
I agree.
I'm sorry, I'm about to call you daughter because I call Nisha, Prosecutor Nisha Esquire. I think that was one of the reasons I really, really wanted you on this program too, because there are going to be women who looking at this program and go like, oh, she been married 35 years. Oh, she ain't been married long enough. But you are the definition of success. I'm just saying, you have matriculated school, you know what I'm saying? You went to law school, you got a degree, you work for, I'm not going to call her name, but one of the high DSAs in our city, and you're right there with her, and you walk in a room and you demand some respect. But then you go home to Aaron. Come on, Aaron. No, I'm joking.
Oh
my place
like
son. What you say? Ain't nothing wrong with that.
that.
But you go home to your husband, and then you submit to that headship, that authority. He's not perfect, but he's progressing. I know, because I see it in his life. And
He's her king.
Yeah, she treats him like. And I've watched that maturation in you. I remember when he brought you home from college years ago. I just, for the break, and I'm like, I checked her out. She gonna be a lawyer, pastor. Yeah, right. Well, there you go. Okay. But my point is, you can take all of that and still put that under the headship of your husband. That's one of the reasons, Jennifer, why I was glad you were here today too, because, I struggle even being a preacher as a pastor with this Titus 2 woman that I saw in her, because Jenny, y'all know her. Jenny is nurturing. She's mothering. She gonna tell the younger ladies, in a nice way. That's just Jenny, and I gotta be honest with you. I wanted her to kind of cut that out years ago, but I realized that's her. I love her for who she is. I remember, it's been over 20 years ago, I asked her to lead corporate America. She wasn't a prosecutor, but she's in a big old tall building downtown. She was running stuff, right? Mm-hmm. She walked in there. She demanded authority. She was somebody in her company. And I begged her to let that go and to come and support me in ministry, because I knew the challenges as a pastor, especially a young pastor at that time. I didn't want our marriage to disintegrate because she was trying to be successful in the corporate world, which she was, and I was trying to be successful in ministry, which I'm still trying. But we would have been like ships in the night passing. You know, I love the fact that I can call my wife. I can have I can disciple men on Monday morning from 10 to noon. And then tell her at 1:30, okay, meet you. We're going to go get a salad, then go sit out at the lake and for 2 or 3 hours and have, salad, lunch, and laugh. Take her back home and come back and meet with men at nighttime.
If I can interrupt, ladies, to this day, I blame him because he said that to me at work.
She asked if I interrupt. You did interrupt me. Go ahead.
He said that to me at work, and I believe with all my heart they were listening in because about 2 weeks later, I was laid off.
Oh,
wow.
Well, I don't know about them. I just know, Lord.
I was laid off.
And I say that because as a pastor, many of my peers have lost their marriages, families destroyed, churches destroyed, extramarital affairs, all this stuff because he and his wife didn't have time. Well, we still make time for our marriage, and she giving that up has allowed us to bless. Only heaven is going to reveal the people who've been impacted or influenced by the relationship that we have. Just off camera, we were kind of, as y'all say, kind of clowning. People think Pastor Boston all stuffy, but and I thank God for that. But if she wouldn't have joined me in ministry and gave up her career, I'm not saying every woman has to give up career because you're here, right? That's not what I'm talking about. You work from your home, and I'm not talking about that. But because of the role that I was in and she joined me, I know whatever effect I've had in the 24, 25 years, it's only because of her influence on me and even other women. Yeah. So I just think what you were saying, they need pictures and portraits of success. How can you be successful working from home and submitting to your husband? How can you be successful going to, soon to be, your husband might be a professor here pretty soon. I'm not supposed to say that, Alma, but I did, in college. And how do all this happen? How do me and Jenny still love each other after 35 years? I tell my kids that all the time. They're like, Dad, you and Mom, hey, you better be glad your mom and daddy still love each other because there's a whole lot of parents still married. They don't even like each other, So I believe women as men need to see more mentoring, modeling of all of the aspects of what you're doing and let them know how you can still submit to biblical headship. Okay, so we know that modern feminism doesn't reflect biblical essence of femininity. What effect do you think that has had on women? Okay, let's see if I can say it another way. What is defined as being feminine or a woman these days from society and culture, we know that doesn't reflect the essence of, femininity. I'm gonna see if I can answer this question without in. So what are your thoughts of what effect that has had on society? Do you understand the question I'm asking? Do I need to ask it another way?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, listen, if a prosecutor, if I'm saying it wrong for a prosecutor, I must be asking this difficult. Okay, so let's see if I can say it like this. Modern feminism, the culture, society, it doesn't reflect biblical femininity, right? Okay. What effect do you think that has had on women? Whether there's a woman who's accepted Christ or there's someone who's rejected Christ, what do you think the effect of modern feminism have on women, period? Both those who are seeking to be saved and those who are saved. What's your thoughts?
I'll start this one. It is a good question. I think
Is she saying the rest of my questions wasn't no good?
No.
I've been struggling on these now.
They were all great questions. I think it's created this idea of kind of how we've been talking about, the male authority, right? It's created this idea of independence, and I don't need a man. I don't need to follow a man. And who are you to say that I have to submit to my husband? It's created this I can do bad all by myself mentality. And if you try to stand up against that and explain to them that that's not what it is, they're not going to hear it. You're against women. You are trying to hold women down.
Right.
These practices are old. This is ancient. This is old biblical days. Those are kind of the things, the struggles you have. And I think that women in the world, like you said, whether in the church or out the church, because even women in the church still struggle with that idea.
Right.
That's their mindset and the concepts that they take from this modern feminism.
Yeah. I know you want to say something, but let me jump because my mind is real short. That lends itself to what I read earlier. Listen, truth has no expiration date on it. Please understand what I'm saying. Truth is always truth. Please understand what I'm saying. Truth, because I told you what truth comes, is derived from God. Truth is truth in Genesis and it's truth in Revelation. Truth is truth in 79 AD and it's truth in 2021 AD. Do you understand what I'm saying? So God's truth about women way back then is still the same truth about women and men even today. And if we don't embrace that, then we are going to be trying to create our own truths, which create the confusion. Yes, ma'am.
Niche took the words right out my mouth because that is the society that we live in. And being millennials and millennial women, that's basically all you see. You know, every woman, every young female out there, they want to be, I don't need no man for nothing. You know, I don't need them to pay my bills. I can pay my bills myself. I can, take care of the home by myself. There's even like women out there that they're wanting to be mothers and just without being married. They don't care about the marriage. They care more about raising children on their own before, even trying to have someone there, helping them, in a sense. So yeah, that the independence that the society is having now with women, it's really strong right now. But me personally, I think to myself, I don't want to do nothing by myself. I need somebody to lead me. Like I need my husband to be the head of head of the house. So because I feel like like I said, I'm naturally, submissive. That's who God made me to be. And yeah, I understand my role and I feel like I play it well.
He actually made all women to be like that.
Yeah.
But society, culture, and many things have driven them to change.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, sometimes I get disappointed that society is in that direction because if they thought about it, if they did it God's way, wow, you could still flourish
Right.
and be so successful. Yeah. And I think men are very valuable.
Well, I know this one need to be valuable for sure.
You're my king.
All right.
And I was going to add to that kind of what you were saying. I think also like society confuses it. They think that when it's saying men authority, it means that the guy is a dictator and
Right.
you have to, I'm an independent person, but I also know how to submit to my husband at the same time. I know how to work with him, kind of like you two are an example. You left your job to support him in his career. It doesn't make you, less independent or less of a woman. And now y'all flourish. Y'all built this church. Y'all have beautiful children, grandchildren who know God. You're still successful. You're still a powerful couple. But society kind of gets it confused. They see submissive and they think, well, he ain't gonna tell me what to do and he's not gonna treat me like that. And it's not a dictatorship. It's still working together cohesively as a married couple. And I think that's another thing is people try to put, like you said, their own truth or how I take it or how I interpret it. You hear that all the time is how I interpret this scripture to say. And I think that's kind of confusing and blurring the lines as well.
Yeah, they try to make submission as being a weak thing, and
it's really strength under
Right.
control.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna
what
say
submission
that.
is. It's
yeah,
strength under
it
control.
takes a lot of strength.
It's strength. A couple of weeks ago, I was preaching, and your husband, after the sermon, he said, "Man, listen, You know, I don't know if he was blowing out my skirt or whatever. But I used an illustration about men and women and was talking about submission, whatever like that. And I remember saying, it kind of came a spur of the moment when I was talking, but I kind of called the woman the hub. And the guy, says he's the protector, the wheel, you know, kind of on the outside. He covers her. You know what I'm saying? The wheel is no good without the hub.
True.
And the hub is no good without the wheel. And trust me, as I was saying, this is the part that he made me recognize. The hub actually, in many cases, is more expensive than the wheel. You know what I'm saying? But so who's helping who? You know what I'm saying? One is no good without the other. Try driving a car with no rubber outside of your hub, or try driving a car with the hub without no rubber. The two become one. You don't go to the tire place and say, I need a tire, and then don't get a hub. You know what I'm saying? So I think when I look at that, you know, I put that value with women. I'm not diminishing Jenny's value. Jenny doing what she did not diminish her value. It actually made her more valuable and show that she was willing to do that. Now you got to understand, this is also under the understanding that we're being led by a biblical man. Okay, a man who Ephesians 5, his wife, you know, he washes her with the word. He leads her. He's not perfect, but he's progressing. You know, Jennifer married the last perfect man on earth, and you know that's me. And if you ask her off of camera, she might tell you I'm not perfect. Okay,
No, I'm gonna say I love my husband, and he is walking in Christ.
just progressing. I'm not perfect by any means. Am I perfect? But I do look at Ephesians 5, which, you know, with the male biblical program, biblical manhood program, we understand what our responsibility is, not to walk in and drop my check, which we're going to talk about that in a minute, say I'm the man and where is that, and, you know, let it happen. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about she's precious, she's valuable, and I'm going to do all I can to protect that, like that rubber on the hub. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do all I can to protect that. I want to serve her when I can. And when we think of that, then you understand that's a myth. Now, if you married a guy, a booger, a rascal who doesn't, you know, not following God, and you are, the Bible said that's your problem, because you're not to be unequally yoked. So you are to submit to him up until the point that he calls you not to sin against God, and pray for him that, you know, God will, you know, change his heart. And I've seen that work in many cases. Okay, I got a few more minutes, but I want to get to a couple more questions, because I'm trying to build up to some things I want to talk about. Let's talk about rearing masculine boys and feminine girls, and then vice versa. Rearing feminine boys and masculine girls. Now, do you understand the way I'm coming with this? Because we rear our boys naturally to be masculine. I reared my son to understand that one day you are going to be responsible for a family. You're going to be responsible for the motherhood. I'm sorry, the fatherhood. And I got to tell you, this is, you know, earlier today, I was looking out the window. He drove up with his family, and they got out of the car, and I was watching from a distance my son get out, you know, see to his wife getting out of the vehicle, and then he has two little girls. He unhooked this one out of the car and went around the other side, got the other one out of the car. I saw him taking the little scarf off of one of his daughters' head, and I'm sitting there looking at my son like, you go, boy. Now, you know, most fathers, like, if he's not playing football, going like, okay, that's not, but I reared him to understand he had a responsibility to serve and protect his family. And then for me to see that happening even just this morning, you know, man, that was a blessing. So what I'm talking about again, what do you think about rearing boys to be feminine and rearing young girls to be masculine?
Well, if I can share, I remember when my son was in high school, and you know he was selecting his electives,
Okay.
And he wanted home economics. And I'm like,
oh yeah, I remember that. Like,
what?
no,
What?
football, boy.
But hold it, Mom. He said, hold it, Mom. Hear me out. First and foremost, he hadn't found his beautiful wife. Yeah. And he said, Mom, what better place than to meet a
My
lot
boy
of,
was smart. My boy was
than
smart.
to meet a lot of great ladies. And I'm like, Then thinking a little farther, I said, yeah, he's going to have to go off to college. He's going to need to know how to cook. And even possibly sew, because a button could fall off your clothes. And so I must say, even today, even going through that, he's a bright entrepreneur. But I can't just brag on him. I got to brag on my daughter. She's a bright entrepreneur, too.
Yeah. But we did not rear our children for my daughter to be masculine.
Right.
Or for my son to be feminine. We know the roles, and that's what I remember my daughter, being angry because she, believe it or not, she graduated high school at 17.
Yes, she did.
17. She was graduating high school. She had the opportunity to go away to college, and I was like, ain't gonna happen. I'm talking about scholarships. And nope, not gonna happen. My 17-year-old daughter not going anywhere. Now, when my son graduated high school, go, get out there, go. And boy, she did not like that. She's like, Dad, how is it that you're going to encourage him to go away and, you didn't let me go away? Well, again, I reared my son to be a father. We reared our daughters. We reared our son to be a father, husband and father, biblical husband and father. And we reared our daughter to be a biblical woman. Do you understand what I'm saying? She went off to college, got a degree and all that stuff. That doesn't mean she's a second-class citizen. So what is the deal with trying to make boys feminine and girls masculine?
You may be confusing the audience when you say went off to college. She went to college at home.
Oh yeah, she right here, University of Houston. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, she went to college, but she wasn't going off to college at 17 years old. No, it wasn't gonna happen. So she hated me for a few years, but it's all right. She got a degree. Okay, so let's talk about that. Rearing, feminine boys, masculine girls.
Whenever you say you're rearing them, like you're rearing the boys to be feminine, is that you, or is that, I don't know, the mother, whoever, just making them a bit more soft so they can be like,
in touch with their feelings.
and being able to communicate maybe with their wives?
No.
No. I mean.
Well, let me say it like this, and I'm trying to, let me just lean into the next question then, because I see right now, y'all, because remember I said vice versa. Masculine girls, feminine boys. Mm-hmm. I think, y'all, if we were to walk down any street in America, we'd see that.
Okay.
Masculine women, and I ain't talking muscles and strength. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. So let me say it like this: society has skewed the lines. All right, they are no longer rearing girls to be mothers, but rather culture is insisting that we raise. Watch this now. Men like women. Now, when I say men like women, in other words, like one of you said earlier, you know what? Hey, I can do this. I can do that. I can do that. I showed my daughter how to fix a flat, but then I gave her AAA and said, listen, make this phone call. Call me. My son, no, you're going to get out here and learn how to fix this flat. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? So when I say the culture is insisting that we raise men like women, what effect do you think this has had on society? It started back in the 50s. I can bring home the bacon fried up in the pan. They'll let you think never ever forget that you a man. In other words, a woman could do it all, which she wasn't designed by God to do it all. So my question again is, culture's insisting that we raise men like women. And do you think that has some type of effect on society? Or what's your thoughts on that?
It definitely has an effect on society. I mean, because we see it in social media. Like you said, you see it walking down the street. I think it's gotten to a point, kind of like Monique was saying. One, people are trying to get rid of gender roles.
Okay. I was wondering if we were going to get there. Thank you for bringing that up.
So that's kind of where it leads. That there's no specific men can do what women can do, women can do what men can
It's
do.
them, they.
Yes, that's where it is. And just like you said, that's not what God has designed. But society makes you believe that that's how it's supposed to be.
Exactly. Ah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and just speaking on the them they thing, it's you're taking yourself out of being an individual, the individual that God made you. Instead, you're like you want to be the majority. It makes no sense to me at all. But with the rearing, I was going back to the question. I believe it's confusing society.
Yeah.
It is it's going to eventually get to a point to where there's going to be no woman to God made us, okay? God made the women to like multiply, to have children.
Right.
And if you're with another woman, you can't go and make more children. If a man is with another man, you can't have more children to raise up. It's like there's going to be an end to it.
That God intended.
Yeah.
Right.
I want you to talk about the museum thing in a minute, but before, the thing that Dr. Richardson told us. But before you do that, I want to say this about what my wife said about my son, going to home economics, learning all this, and then also watching her in the kitchen cook. And this is by no means demeaning my daughter-in-law, who's an excellent mother of both our granddaughters. But I watched my son today do a great portion of the cooking in his home. Serving his wife after he comes home from work, or he's entrepreneur doing whatever he do. He'll come home, and not that she don't do nothing, because she's rearing our grandchildren, and they're just expanding in their little personalities. But what if my son doesn't know how to cook, boil water? He can't serve his wife in that capacity. And so he's serving her in that capacity. And y'all know little Mike walking around there with muscles ripped and all of that. But can you imagine him in the kitchen cooking meals, which he does? So I want you to understand, I want everyone listening to this program to understand, when I say biblical manhood, that don't mean you come home and wearing my groceries and all that. You can, Ephesians 5, go home and still serve your wife. My role is folding clothes, not cooking dinner.
On the flip side of that, though, our daughter, even though she's a diva, she still knows how to do those technical things that a man can do.
But we didn't make our daughter to be man-like,
Right.
and neither did we make our son to be woman-like.
Yeah.
They both understand their roles, and they understand the roles of the opposite sex. And they use that to complement their relationships and their marriage. Now, in the early 80s, my pastor used to say something. I want to give you the privilege of saying what he says. Kind of speaking to the mic. Bring your mic in just a little bit.
We thought our pastor had lost his mind.
Yeah.
This was back in the early 80s.
Right.
Dr. Richardson said, there's going to come a time when you're going to have to go to a museum and they're going to point to a wall saying, this is a family. This is a mother. Why would we know what a mother looks like?
Right.
That's what we're thinking,
She's
right?
the one who has the babies. That's literally what he said. Yeah.
And this is the father.
Yeah.
And these are the children.
Yeah. And that's the dog
And we
spot.
were like, why we know that? And never did we know. He was far before his
Advanced,
time.
yes,
Advanced before his time. We never considered about people doing the gender change at that time. But now we're here.
We literally thought he lost his mind. I mean, we
Seriously.
talked about that.
He would point.
Like, man,
This is
get
the
out
father.
here. And literally, he said there's going to be a portrait hanging on the wall of the museum.
In
You're
the
going to have to
museum.
go there and explain masculinity, femininity, family.
The function of each
And I was
of
like,
those.
come on, man, get out. And we are there.
We're there.
Right.
20 years later. That's just unthinkable. And so when I talk about raising, Men like women, women like men. That's what I'm talking about. And he told us that was coming, and that was no way on earth I thought we would ever experience that. But the truth of the matter is now we got to do that, because I look at my grandchildren right now, and when we look at society and the way family now is described, you can have two females, one functioning like a male, and the other, and people gonna say, well, that is family. I'm gonna go with what we said, because we talk straight from scripture here.
Right.
God defines what family is, and everybody else is a lie. Okay, and that's God defines. He created it. So anybody else's definition of family that goes against God, it is not family. Okay, so that's how we hold our convictions as it relates to this. Okay, I think y'all lean in on this one, and then we have one more after that. Culture has caused women to measure men by the 3 B's.
What
Okay?
are they?
Okay, the 3 B's. The ball field, meaning an athlete. The bedroom, I guess an athlete. Or the bill folder, you meaning money. Society, yes. It tells the girl, you better find you Deshaun Watson. I'm just saying, I don't know, but the athlete, the bedroom, and the bill folder. Culture has caused women to measure men by that. I want your thoughts on ways you think that a man should be measured from a biblical perspective. And if you want to get acrostic using B's, knock yourself out. But do you understand what I'm saying right now? That girl, you find you a ball player, somebody making some money, make sure he's good in the bedroom, and then the other, you better make sure he's making money. That's what culture said. What is your thoughts on measuring a man from a biblical perspective? What do you think? What are some character traits or something that you look for in a biblical man? Don't tell me your husband, okay? All right.
Well, I went to the source for my husband.
Yeah.
I said to God, God, you sit high and look low. If Mike Boston is for me, let it happen. If he's not for me, then take him out of my life.
Bless your heart. Bring the mic close to you. I remember dating her. I began preaching a year before we got married. But a year prior to that, when she and I was dating, because we dated for a little over 2 years, I remember her saying, I prayed to the Lord for a husband, yeah, and I wanted to marry a preacher. I'm like, well, I'm far from that, right? I've been preaching now for 37 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, she did this to me. God answered her prayer. I was not a preacher. Certainly wasn't a pastor when we met. But she wanted to marry a preacher. She told me that long before I was a preacher. And some biblical characteristics. You were looking for a godly man? Or what?
I'm laughing because he needs to say the full story.
No,
of that
I would never do that.
The preacher that I thought I had my eye on.
Okay. She about to minimize me, but let's
No,
go ahead.
no. Was not a full-fledged preacher, in fact.
Well, he's gone on to someplace. I don't know if it's heaven or hell, but
He's
anyhow.
gone.
Yeah.
But it turned out that preacher.
Had a lot of feminine qualities. Let's say it like that.
Okay, that's a good way of
Let's say
thank
it like
you for
that.
saving me.
He had a lot of feminine. I was like,
Thank you. And
you
God
want
took that out of my life.
you want that? No way. Well, I'll tell you right now, ain't nothing over here like that. Okay. Yeah.
But yet,
So what would be qualities that you would look, or you would encourage another woman to look for in a biblical man, besides the bill folder, the bedroom, and and the ball field?
he has to be a man searching after God's heart.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that.
You forgot what do they say now? A lot of women be like, I want my Boaz, I want my boy.
Oh yeah, those are super spiritual women. Yeah.
That'd be thrown in there with the billionaire and all that
See,
too.
I gotta do that.
You gotta throw that in because he gotta have a little spiritual in him. But he still gotta be an athlete and make some money.
Yeah.
I definitely, when I was looking for men, I wanted someone clearly who was saved because I didn't want to be unequally yoked. Someone who was committed to the cause because I knew how I was searching to be committed, and I wanted our children and someone who can lead our family. I didn't want to be the only one, praying, the only one raising our children to know and love God. I wanted someone who had that same devotion, even if it wasn't exactly on my level, but someone who was just as devoted to Christ. So, faithful, committed, devoted. Those were things that I wanted. And then someone who just had a love for God. You just had, I remember, and I know you said not to talk about our husbands, but the first time my husband messaged me on Facebook, the first thing he was like, okay, before we even start talking, what's your relationship like with Christ? That was like, I was like, okay, who this guy? Because no men be asking me that. They don't be sliding in the DMs asking about God, okay?
Well, you do know I kind of trained him before he left here, but go ahead.
So that was something that kind of like perked me up. But, and then someone who just prays or who's okay with being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times men, like you say, they feel like they have to be macho. I have to be this masculine. And to see, honestly, the most beautiful moments in our marriage and our relationship was when I saw him vulnerable with God in prayer and sometimes even broken down and needing God to fix him. And someone who's like that, they don't let their pride and ego get in the way or things that I would look for.
I like to add a little commercial right here. I've been discipling him since he was a little kid and watched him through high school, college, and all that other stuff. He was a roommate with my son in college, and I've been mentoring him all that. So if he's, that kind of man, I'm going to take a pat on my back. How about, no, I'm just
I give you a high
joking.
five. Okay. I know it's all you.
No, to watch him mature and, it's been a beautiful thing, and it's good that you were looking for that. I'm just glad that he also was looking for that, when he was looking for a wife. Yeah, that's great. Okay, you get to talk about King Darius.
So, Darius, we met whenever we were 15, 16.
Okay.
We weren't deep into Christ. We grew up in the church because our parents made us go to church.
Right.
So what I was looking for, I wasn't looking for. I wasn't looking for anything that I thought I should be looking for. I'm gonna say that. And he wasn't looking for, he wasn't looking for me, I guess.
Adam and Eve wasn't looking for each other either, but God brought them together.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna get to. Literally, God put us together because, just being so young and together, at that stage, you don't think that you're then, your boyfriend that you only get to see on the weekend. If your mom and dad says yes, you can, have movie night or whatever. You don't think of that person being your husband or your wife. You're just like, this is my boyfriend. We may or may not stay together like for the next few weeks.
Right.
You don't know. So what
What
I look
quality
for,
would you
but
recommend? Yeah.
okay, what I recommend, I would recommend you looking at their heart.
Oh, wow.
If they're a man, for the women out there, if the man that you're seeking or whatever, he has a heart that's filled with Christ, that's basically the man that you want to go for.
Man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right. I got one last question. All right. And what do you think of when I say these 4 words? Well, they're probably 5 if you use them. Just think for a moment. Superwoman or biblical woman? Superwoman or biblical woman? When I say those, what do you think of? Just offhand, when someone professes to be a superwoman or a biblical, what turns in your mind? Excuse me, when you hear those terms.
Superwoman. Whenever I hear Superwoman, I think of Superman's counterpart.
Okay.
That's the first thing that comes into my mind. A woman that, basically what we talked about earlier, what society, is
Okay.
making us want to make us out to be.
Right.
An independent woman that can do anything, she want to do, not needing someone that's going to save her.
Yeah.
Biblical woman is someone who you're following the role that God placed you out to be.
Okay.
You are submitting to His calling for you. You are defying the odds of what society or what the culture wants you to be, and you are you're being an example, the right example for what young women should be.
Okay. All right. Great. Superwoman, biblical woman.
I honestly put them together. I was like,
Okay.
a biblical woman is a superwoman.
Oh,
That she
go ahead on that. All right, then.
That's the first thing you
Object.
said. The first,
Object.
you said the first thing, and that's literally. I was like, I mean, well, a biblical woman is a superwoman. We
Okay.
can do it all,
Okay.
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 But what you said was really great. So that's kind of where I am. But like we said, if we were to distinguish the two, the superwoman society makes you feel like you should do it
Right.
all by yourself, independent, and the biblical woman is what we discuss here today, all the different types of women that we are. And you don't have to be just a stay-at-home wife, but they're submissive, they're rearing their children up, they're persevering, enduring, all those type of things, but they're doing it in the faith and not relying on their own strength, but on Christ's strength.
Okay. All right. Superwoman or biblical woman. What do you think of when you hear those terms?
I would rather focus more on the biblical woman.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
And that's because she has so many qualities that we can't do without.
And, well, it's quite obvious. The world sponsors one, the superwoman, and God sponsors the other, the biblical woman. The world is not going to sponsor your biblical womanhood. Society and culture is not going to sponsor biblical womanhood, but God will support that. And that's what I was kind of going at. You know what, guys? And I use guys in a neutral sense, okay? Neutral sense. It's been great sitting here talking with you today. I'm just, I can't tell you, I can't wait till the edits and all of the things are in this, and this is presented. We're going to try to do it on the heels of our biblical manhood presentation so that they can get both aspects of it. And I want to encourage you to encourage others to watch this, but I just want to right now close with each one of you if there's maybe something on your mind that you want to say as it relates to biblical womanhood and how practically it's being lived out in your life. And when each one of you finish, we'll actually be finished. So I want to go right now and maybe let's start with, Monique and work our way around the table. And again, thank you for being our guest today, first and prayerfully not last time. I've had fun with it, but just kind of close today with, anything that you'd like to lend to the practicality of biblical womanhood.
Okay, you put me on the spot, Pastor.
You've been on it for about an hour and a half.
This is the spot. Okay, if I could leave anything for the young ladies out there, it would be to be yourself, but be a better version of yourself through Christ. That's it.
See, going first, now they got to come up with some stuff. Now, you said it. I always like to go first because, all right. Now, that's right. Now you see what you did?
What was the question again?
In your own words, give us what you would, recommend the practicality of biblical womanhood. Everything that we said today, just if you'd like to make a smorgasbord sandwich to leave with somebody about biblical womanhood, what would you say to them?
There's so many things, honestly, but I would just encourage everyone that if you don't understand or if you don't know, to find that woman in your life or someone that you feel that you can go to teach you those things, or find a church home where there are women who are resembling biblical womanhood so that you can learn. All of us need it, right? And if you are that biblical woman, then you should be mentoring other women to become biblical women.
I love that. In fact, I'm thinking about my pastor always says, whenever you want to know how God intended something to be, always go to the Bible and see where he first mentioned it. And the first two ladies in our Bible is Eve and Sarah. Both of them bring so much to the table.
Wow.
And that's what I like to share.
Wow. That was deep.
That was.
Eve would have been the worldly, and Sarah would have been the biblical. See, y'all, that's when I married her. I told y'all. Listen, I want to thank our cameraman. All right. I want to thank you all for coming in the studio today and helping us guard the truth. That's what this program is about, guarding the truth. Paul told Timothy, he said, guard what has been entrusted to you. I don't have to innovate truth. I don't have to create truth because God has given us the truth. Truth is truth always. And all we do with this program is guard the truth, and we guard it straight out of Scripture. So I'd like to end. I can't fist pump y'all because that would be biblical or manly. So I just want to nod my head to each of you all and say thank you so much for making this program what it's been today. All right?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.